As we continue on in our lesson on installation and configuration of ADCS, we're going to talk about configuring certificate access. It's very, very important to make sure we're protecting these certificates, because if someone gets their hands on them, it will compromise authentication and content. So what we're going to do is talk about certificate revocation list, which is CRL. They're really just a type of blacklist of all your certificates that are checked periodically to make sure we can access content. The default location for these CRLs is in the system root, system32, cert srv/cert enroll. Your enterprise CAs used both user accounts and groups to either approve or deny any requests coming in to authenticate or access content. And as we saw previously, every certificate has a validity period, and your CRL contains certificates that have been revoked by the CA prior to that expiration date. So your CRL will only contain those certificates revoked. And in order for your clients to function, they have to have access to the CRL to validate whether or not that certificate is good or bad. And that can be done a couple different ways. We can have published CRLs, which is a digitally signed list of all of the revoked certificates, or Delta CRLs, which is just a list of certificates that have been revoked since the last CRL was published. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit smaller because you don't have the entire list. As an alternative, we could also use the ADCS Online Responder. This also provides revocation status about specific certificates. The advantages of this over CRLs: provides better support for your remote clients because they don't need to check for the entire CRL. The OCSP avoids excessive network activity, and it also improves revocation checking throughput because it only provides the required revocation checking data. And in order to install this, we're going to use the Add Roles and Features wizard. We saw this as an option as we installed the ADCS, and now we're going to go back in and install this Online Responder. And it's telling me not to install the Online Responder on the server hosted in the CA role, so we're going to perform the installation of OCSP on our second domain controller within our domain because our first domain controller has the CA role already. Our steps to install and configure are going to be pretty straightforward, and we're going to walk through them together. You need to log on to the CA server with local administrative permissions. You need to install the features and make sure you click to add all the features as well as the management tools. You'll configure the Online Responder using Configure ADCS. So similar to installing the Active Directory certificate services, there's an installation piece and then there's a configuration piece. You'll then issue the response signing certificate template from the CA console, and then we're going to create our revocation configuration for Online Responder using the Online Responder Management Wizard. Whenever you have a wizard, you already know it's going to be a lot easier than walking through those steps individually. So let's step back out to our image and explore the Online Responder service. We are on our second domain controller in our domain because we installed the Active Directory certificate servers on our first domain controller. And as you saw, it's not a good idea to add the Online Responder to there. So we're going to go into the Add Roles and Features wizard. We're going to click Next on that very first screen. We're going to take the default, click Next. We're going to click on Active Directory certificate services. Remember, we haven't installed that here yet. And we're going to verify the Include Management Tools is selected. We're going to click Add Features. We're going to go ahead and click Next, and then we're going to click Next on Features, and it's giving me the information we talked about when we saw the initial installation of ADCS. So we're going to go ahead and click Next on this. Now we're going to deselect the CA, and we're going to choose the Online Responder. It pops up yet another window telling me it's going to install some additional features. Specifically, it's going to do some work with Web Server IIS. Again, our Include Management Tools option is checked, so we're going to go ahead and click Add Features. We're going to make sure the Online Responder is still checked. We'll click Next, and it's providing information about the default installation of the Web Server IIS role. We're okay with that. We'll click Next. These are the components it's chosen to install for support of the Online Responder specific to IIS. We'll again click Next. If it needs to restart, we're going to let them have at it. We'll click Yes on that, and now we're ready to click Install. We'll click Install here. I'll pause. That's the beauty of video, and then we'll come back when this completes. You'll see the installation completed successfully, and again, we have an option to click on this link to go out and work with the option that was just installed. This should all look familiar. It gives us information about the local administrators group, the enterprise admins group. We've already seen this. I'm going to go ahead and click Next on this. Here's the Online Responder. That's the only option I have to configure because that's the only option I installed. I'll go ahead and click Next on this. And you're going to see it's only displaying Online Responder, so I'm going to go ahead and click Configure. and it gives us another link for more about the OCSP configuration. We'll close this now, and now we've successfully installed and configured the OCSP on our second domain controller of our domain. In a smaller organization, you're going to create a security group, and you're going to populate users in that security group that you want to manage your certificates. If your organization starts growing, you may want to break out some of the roles associated with managing ADCS. And this is an example of what you can do, because unfortunately, Server 2016 does not provide any built-in roles for the ADCS administration, so you have to create them. These are just an idea for names of these and what you'll assign for these groups. So first off, we have the CA admin. Full party rights for managing CA. You're going to assign all of the CA roles, including the renew CA certificates, as well as configure and maintain CA. So you're going to create the security groups and Active Directory users and computers, and then you're going to assign the permissions inside of the CA console. You're going to create another group in ADUC called Certificate Manager, which is going to be responsible for issuing and managing certificates, including approving and revoking certificates. These permissions will also be assigned to this security group inside of the CA console. And if you want someone to back up these certificates, you can make them part of the ADUC Backup Operators group, which allows them to perform backups and restores. There's also an Auditors group that's already in ADUC. You can populate users in there to allow them to manage the auditing and security logs. So the first two are groups you're going to create in ADUC, and then you're going to assign permissions through the CA console. The second two are already in ADUC. You're just going to populate the users into those groups that you want to perform those certificate-specific tasks. And just a little bit of heads up, by default, the local administrators group already has the manage CA as well as the issue and manage certificates permission. And enterprise CAs, the domain admins global security group, and the enterprise admins universal security group also has the manage CA and issue and manage certificates permissions. So those permissions are already defined to the security groups by default.